Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Today, I don't know if this is a coincidence or what, but we are on episode 99 of the podcast and is the very last episode of the year. So, when I was starting to record right now, I was like, "Oh my god, it might be a coincidence, but I think, it's just meant to be." And today I want to close up the year. We've been doing this series of podcast episodes around ending the year strong and creating momentum into the new year. And today is the last episode of the year. So I want to close this third season of the podcast with an episode that I hope inspires you as you enter the new year this week. We're going to be entering 2022. And my wish for you is that you have a really fulfilling and successful year in 2022, that you make 2022 the best year yet. And I'm going to share with you today something that can help you have that strong start of the year and certainly help you make 2022 your best year yet. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. Okay, I'm going to interrupt very quickly today's podcast episode to share something with you that I'm really excited about. I've been talking for weeks, for months on how to end the year strong and create momentum into the new year. So I am going to be hosting a 22-day challenge for a strong start of 2022. For 22 days, you're going to be part of a private community with daily check-ins where I'm going to be sharing inspiration, motivation, tools, resources to help you have a strong start of the year. I've shared with you this statistic. Over 70% of the people give up on their New Year resolutions by mid of February. Beat all the statistics. Join the challenge and create the momentum towards the best year of your life. Go to the show notes of this podcast episode to find out more information and enroll in the 22-day challenge for a strong 2022. And now let's get back to today's podcast episode. Okay, here we are. Last episode of season number 3 of the Leading Yourself podcast. Last episode on 2021. And I want to end the year strong in the podcast by delivering the best content that I can. And I've been debating for a couple of weeks now on what should I talk about in this very last episode of the year. How can I add the most value to you today as we are wrapping up 2021 and kicking off 2022? At the end of this week, we're going to be entering a new year. And I don't know about you, but I feel really, really excited for the new year ahead. And I only can think of the new challenges, the new opportunities, the new adventures, the new goals, all the amazing things that are coming to my life in 2022 and that are coming to your life as well. Because my wish for you is that again, you make 2022 your best year yet. And so as I was thinking again on what I wanted to talk about today, I came up with today's podcast episode on how to move the needle in 2022. We've been talking a lot about ending the year strong and creating momentum into the new year. You probably, I hope that you listen to the masterclass episode. This was an podcast episode I did a couple of weeks ago. It's actually episode 96, um, around goal setting and crushing your goals in 2022. And I share with you my framework for setting and crushing your goals as you go into the new year. And I want to complement that episode with today's episode because I think that episode, that masterclass is the foundation, right? It gives you the structure, the framework on how to set those smarter goals, how to prevent some of the most common mistakes when we're setting goals, but also giving you a framework on how to stick to your goals throughout the year and actually accomplish those goals next year. When I think about fulfillment, which is my wish for all of you in 2022, what I think about, for me, fulfillment is about balance, is about having a centered life, being able to have clear priorities and feel fulfilled in my priorities. That for me brings fulfillment, right? When you set priorities and you really feel that you're making traction in those priorities. And I think fulfillment comes with progress. Yes, it comes with achieving things, but I think the most fulfillment comes with in the journey, in the process. And I've talked about this a lot of times. It's all about the journey and not the destination. The destination is like your North Star, it tells you where to go. And once you cross that finish line, yes, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel so proud of yourself. You're going to feel so fulfilled. But it's so, so important that you enjoy the journey to get there. Because once you get to that finish line, that sense of celebration and feeling proud and accomplished is going to last how long, right? You're going to spend more time getting there than the time that you're going to enjoy having arrived there. So, what I want to talk today about is how can you move the needle in 2022 so you can feel fulfilled and you can have the best year yet. So let's dig into it. This was the longest introduction I think I've ever done, but I think it's important to set that foundation, right? And what I want to talk about today again is how to move the needle. And one of the things that most people ask me is how am I so consistent with the things that I do? How am I so consistent with every week publishing a podcast episode? How am I so consistent with having my morning routine every day and exercising every day? And you can say whatever, right? But I think that the key for me to stay consistent, and I think consistency is the secret ingredient for success, right? The reason why people give up on their New Year resolutions or in the New Year goals is because they did not got to the point that they developed consistency around the needle moving activities that are going to help them create the momentum and get traction and make progress towards those goals that they set for themselves. So it all starts with having clarity on what your destination is, having clarity around what your goals are, having clarity around what your priorities are. If you're not clear on what your destination is, what your priorities are, what your goals are, nothing that I'm going to share with you today is going to help you have the best year yet. It all starts with clarity. And that's why, if you haven't listened to episode 96, I really, really encourage you to listen to that episode, to download the workbook that comes with that episode, and not only listen to the episode, but do the work for yourself to set those goals for yourself for the new year. It's the last week of the year. What a better time to invest some time with yourself, for yourself, getting that clarity around your goals and priorities for next year. Now, when I talk about moving the needle, um, what am I talking about? It's really, really simple. It's about, first of all, being clear on what your priorities are. A lot of times people tell me, again, how am I so consistent, for example, with working out 6 days a week, sometimes even 7 days a week? And they're like, I don't have the time. How do you find the time to work out every day? How do you find the time to record a podcast every week? Like, people who know me personally, they know all the things that I have on my plate. And that's why they ask the question, because they're struggling to understand, how do I find the time to do these things? And here's the thing, I make the time for these things. I don't find the time, I make the time. I would never find the time. Like, my days are busy as they are, and I would have never find the time to do these things. But let me ask you something. If you are a parent, if you have kids, has there been any day in the life of your kids that you didn't have time to feed them? If you're not a parent, maybe you have a pet that you love, that you adore. Has there been any day since you had your pet that you haven't feed them? Has there been any day that you have just not go to work just because? Maybe there has been a day like that, but I think the example of the kids is the best example I can think of. Like, I have a 12-year-old and I have a 5-year-old. And for the last 12 years, there hasn't been one day that I have not find the time, make the time to feed my kids. Not only once or twice, but at least 3 times a day, right? And how is it that I find the time to do that every day, but I can't find the time to work out or record my podcast? And this is something that hit me some time ago when I started this journey. And it's like, the reason why is because my kids, my family is my number one priority. And I'm super crystal clear that that's my number one priority, that nothing is more important than my family, than my kids. And that's why I never go to bed without feeding my kids, no matter how busy I am, no matter how stressful the day was, no matter if I had a good day, a bad day, if it rained, if it snowed, if I was stuck in traffic, if I had an accident. It doesn't matter what happened in my day. There hasn't been a day since the day my son, who's 12 years old, was born, that I haven't fed my kids. So here is the thing, feeding my kids is a needle moving activity, right? If I love my kids, right, that is one or the most basic need that they have, to eat. They need to eat, otherwise they won't survive. So that's why it's so easy for me to make sure that every day I'm feeding my kids. It's a needle moving activity for my number one priority. So as you go in 2022, if you already went through that exercise on the podcast episode number 96 on setting goals, if you already have set your goals for the year, or when you set the goals for the year, here is what I want to invite you to do. I want you to prioritize your goals. Define what are going to be your top priorities in 2022. What are your number 1, 2, and 3 priorities in 2022? Is it to lose weight? Is it to start a business? Is it to start a podcast? Is it to get a promotion? Is it to buy a new house? Is it to go on the most memorable vacation in your life? What is your goal? What are your priorities in 2022? And you need to make those priorities your top priorities, equivalent to feeding your kids or your pet. And I'm not suggesting that these things are as important or more important than feeding your kids. What I'm saying is that if you truly believe in your core that these are your top priorities, you're going to find and make the time to accomplish those goals. See, when something is important to you, you make the time to work on those things. When something is not important to you, you find excuses not to work and make progress towards those things. So it is super important that you're super crystal clear on what are your priorities and that are your core. You believe that these are your top priorities. And if they are, you're going to have the leverage to find and make the time to work on those priorities. Now, believing that those are your priorities, being clear that those are your top priorities is not enough. You need to identify what are the activities, not only the activities, but the needle moving activities that, as a consequence of doing those activities or as a result of doing those activities, you're going to make progress towards your goals. And here's where a lot of people come with this long list of things to do. And the list is so long that even before you start doing any of them, you're already feeling overwhelmed because of all the things that you need to do. Instead of making a long list, you can start with a long list in kind of like a brainstorming. But instead of finding a long list of activities, what I want you to do is to prioritize what are the vital few things that you need to do that would move the needle and help you make progress towards your goals. And then you can do this once a quarter. So if you listen to episode 96, if you did that goal setting exercise, one of the steps that I talk about is breaking down those annual goals in quarters. Like, what are going to be your focal things in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4? So think about Q1 of 2022. Think about what are the goals that you want to achieve in the first quarter of 2022. What are your top priorities in Q1 of 2022? Brainstorm all the things that you could do to make progress towards achieving those goals. Prioritize your activities and come up with maximum 5 things. If you can stick to 3, even better, but 3 to 5 things that if you consistently do during the first quarter of the year, by the end of the quarter, you would achieve that milestone that you set for yourself. And in a previous podcast episode, I talk about the rule of 5. This is something that I learned from John Maxwell. And you can Google it. There is some YouTube videos of John Maxwell explaining this rule of 5. I'm going to explain it very, very briefly. But he uses this analogy of you having this tree on your backyard and you're trying to get rid of the tree. You're trying to cut the tree down and you have this axe, and every morning this man that wanted to like take this tree down, he would every morning wake up, have his coffee, and right after having his coffee, he could go into his backyard, grab the axe, and hit the tree 5 times. And then he would put the axe down and carry on with his day. And you would say, okay, if you hit a tree 5 times with an axe, there's no way that tree is coming down, especially if it's a big tree, right? Imagine that this is a big tree. Like your goals. You have big, audacious goals for 2022, right? You should. You should have risky, audacious goals that are outside of your comfort zone, that are out of your reach right now. So imagine, going, hitting the tree 5 times, carrying on with your day. And then the next day, same thing. He would wake up, have his cup of coffee, go back to his backyard and hit that tree with his axe 5 times, put the axe down, and carry on with the day. Eventually, the tree will come down. Eventually, he's gonna, he's gonna get the tree down only by hitting 5 times the tree with his axe every day. So that is the rule of five. The rule of five basically is 5 habits that you do every day consistently that are like hitting that tree with an axe. Think of that tree as your goal. And then think about every time that you hit that tree with an axe is one activity that you're doing that is helping you get closer to your goal, which is get the tree down, right? Like achieve your goal. What would be those needle moving activities? And once you identify those, make those your non negotiables every day during the entire first quarter of 2022. When I mean non-negotiables, mean like just like you go to bed, you will never go to bed without feeding your kids or your beloved pet. You will not go to bed any day during the first quarter of the year without having complete those needle moving activities. Whether they're 3 or 5, I recommend maximum pick 5. If you're new to this whole thing of the rule of 5, start with 3. Start with 3 activities, and they don't have to be big activities. Just like hitting a tree with an axe doesn't require a lot of effort, right? It just requires you showing up every day and making those things non-negotiable. So let's say that you want to lose weight in 2022. And I picked this example because we've talked about this. Losing weight is the number one New Year resolution that everyone puts on their list. So let's pick that as an example. If you're trying to lose weight in 2022, first of all, how much weight do you want to lose next year? Is it 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds? Once you have a smarter goal, and when I say smarter goal, please go back to that episode 96. I explained the smarter framework. You have heard about SMART goals. You might not have heard about smarter goals. So go check out episode 96. But you have a smarter goal, which is lose 20 pounds, let's say, by the end of the year 2022. And then you break that down quarter by quarter. So if I want to lose 20 pounds next year, that means that every quarter I need to lose 5 pounds, right? 5 times 4 is 20. So every 3 months, my goal is to lose 5 pounds. Those are my milestones during the year. And I like breaking it by quarters because I think having these milestones make it so much more doable, right? Like if you think about I need to lose 20 pounds, it might feel in itself overwhelming. It's like, how am I going to lose 20 pounds? Like it's impossible and you already feel defeated even before you start. But if you say, I want to focus on losing 5 pounds, that is more manageable, right? So you say, okay, first quarter, I want to lose 5 pounds. What are the needle moving activities that are going to help you lose 5 pounds in the first quarter of 2022? Maybe is working out 6 days a week, 30 minutes every day. Maybe is drinking at least half of my body weight in ounces of water. Maybe is not eating carbs at dinner. Maybe is not having treats during the week. Whatever those needle moving activities are for you. Think about what are the things, doesn't matter how small they are, that if you do consistently every day during the first 90 days of the year, are going to help you achieve your goal of losing 5 pounds, right? And those become your rule of three or your rule of five. Those are your non negotiables that you're never going to go to bed any day without having complete those activities. See? That is the power of needle moving activities in creating your best year yet. If you are able to stick to this, and let me tell you this, the first day, you're going to have so much energy. You're going to be so motivated. You're going to have so much willpower that it's going to be easy. And then it's going to get hard and then harder, right? To keep up with these things. But eventually, if you keep doing it every day and you keep telling yourself that these are non negotiables, if you keep honoring your promise that you will not go to bed without doing this needle moving activities, eventually they're going to become a habit, which means that you're going to do them in autopilot and you're not going to have to put as much energy in doing these things. They're going to become part of who you are. And then when the first quarter ends, then you can reflect on were these needle moving activities, in fact, needle moving activities? Did they help me achieve my milestone of losing 5 pounds during the year, or switching jobs, or getting my promotion, or buying the house, or whatever your top priority for the year is? And then ask yourself, what is the next milestone for Q2? And do the same exercise over again. And that is when you reflect and you have a chance to change, to tweak, to adjust what are those needle moving activities. But it is important that you commit to do these things for the entire quarter. A lot of people start doing these things, and after 5 days, they're like, oh, this is not working. I'm just going to switch it. I'm going to do something different. See, these activities are like that axe, right? Hitting the tree 5 times with an axe is not going to make a big difference. You're not going to see the tree falling the first day that you hit it 5 times with that axe. It takes consistency in doing the same activity over and over every day to actually see the results. So be patient with yourself, have grace with yourself, stick to your commitment. What is the worst that can happen? That you didn't hit your milestone at the end of the first quarter? Then you have an opportunity to reflect, to do some lessons learned, to adjust those needle moving activities for Q2 and try something different. But don't give up before the end of the first quarter. Stick to those activities. Yes, do your best to try to identify what are going to be those 3 to 5 things that are going to make the biggest impact in you making progress towards hitting that milestone. But if you don't hit the milestone, that doesn't mean that you fail. That means that you learn something. Take the time to learn and to reflect on what you learned during the first quarter and take those learnings into the second quarter. I promise that you stick consistent with this process. Next year is going to be the most fulfilling year in your life. It's going to be the year that you don't give up on your goals. It's going to be the year that you develop the consistency that you've been wanting to have for years. Is the year that you're going to hit your goals and you're going to feel that you're making progress every day and you're going to feel the most proud of yourself that you've ever been. So, that is how I want to end this third season of the Leading Yourself podcast. This is how I want to end the year because I think that there's no better way to end the year than with the inspiration and the motivation to keep going, to keep trying, to keep learning and growing, and believing that it is up to you to make next year, 2022, the best year in your life yet. And that is my wish to all of you, that 2022 brings you fulfillment, success, and above all things, health and love and joy. I want to take this opportunity one more time to thank you for listening to the Leading Yourself podcast, because is because of you that I keep doing this. You give me the inspiration and the motivation to keep showing up every week, recording these episodes and sharing with you what is in my mind, what is in my heart, what is that I'm learning, what is that I'm struggling. And I hope that this year, in how many episodes that you listen to, you found inspiration. You found ideas and tips and tools and resources that are helping you in your journey to become the best version of yourself. With that, I wish you all a happy new year. I hope you have the best end of 2021 and the best start of 2022. If you think this podcast is helpful, if you feel that someone can benefit from this podcast, do me a favor and share it with a friend. And today, as we close the year, as we close this season of the podcast, I want to ask you one more favor. It will mean the world to me if you go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes and you leave a review for the podcast. That will mean the world to me, and I will be always grateful for your review. With that, have an amazing end of the year, an even better start of 2022. I will see you again next week for a new episode of the Leading Yourself podcast.